So let's talk about some of the softwares that you may all be aware of. Like you must have heard about Linux, Android, 7-zip, Kubernetes, Docker, and whenever you must have talked about it, you must have uh, heard the term open source somewhere. Someone must have mentioned it that it's a open source software. Or if you were talking about open source software, you must have heard about these softwares. Now, I when I talk to people about open source, I see there is lots of misconception about it. So, how many of you know about open source? I'm not going to ask you to tell me, but I just want to know how many of you know about open source. Okay, how many of you think that open source software is free? Okay, how many of you think that open source software, which is having source code open source and free, okay, how many of you think that if a software has source code available, then it can be termed as open source? Okay, so I think, yeah, some of you. So, what people have misconception is if a software is free and it is providing you source code, it's open source. But it's not the thing. What actual open source means, okay, with every software, there is a license associated with that. And what that license means is, in that license, the person who has written the software is giving you the freedom, is giving you the right to study it, to modify it, to redistribute it, to build your product around it, and do whatever you want to do. It gives you freedom, but that comes with a license. Okay, not every software available there free is a open source software. So how will you identify that? So whenever you go on any of the source code repository of that particular project, or you download that project, there is a license file in that particular project. Like if I go for the React repository, there is a license file, and GitHub even tells you what freedom it gives. Like you are free to use it for commercial purpose, modification, distribution. So there are certain licenses which are defined already, and this software has a file which tells you what you could do with that and what you cannot. So if I'm telling you, many of the people, what they do is they push their code to GitHub and say that we are doing something with open source. Or they download some software from there and think that this is open source. So it's not. Even a company can sue you for using certain software if it is not under certain license. Okay? So this was just for the basic understanding. Now, in the real world, like there are various non-profit organizations which are working for social causes. Like for example, some organizations work for poor, some work for blood donation. So similar way in IT industry, there are open source organizations. What these non-profit organizations do, they take donation from big organizations and they use it to nurture these open source projects. Because the open source projects needs lots of things, like they need a security team, they need legal team, marketing team, so that a community could be built around them. So these are some big names: Apache Software Foundation, Open Source Initiative, CNCF. The Kubernetes that you use, it's from CNCF. The Kafka, Solar, Hadoop, these projects are from Apache Software Foundation. So what these organizations do is they support these projects, monetary, non-monetary way. They define the governance rules, like who could be made maintainers. They make it vendor neutral to this project so that more and more adapters can come along. Now, why this information is useful for you? If you are planning to contribute to open source, if you go for these big organizations, it brings you more benefits. Like in these organizations, mostly the people from all the big companies are there, contributing there along with you. So without being in that company, as a student, you can experience what it like to be working with them. They will be reviewing your code, they will be providing inputs, and there is so much to learn from them. And these organizations, if you go to their sponsorship page, you will find that all the big companies, Microsoft, Uber, every big name you know, they are spending money, they are funding these organizations. They are relying on these projects of these organizations, and they are contributing back to them. Okay, so let's start with these three stories. So Kubernetes, as I told you, it belongs to CNCF. Kafka belongs to Apache Software Foundation, and Zest belongs to OpenJS Foundation. Now, what's really interesting about them is Kubernetes was initially implemented in Google, and they donated it to Apache, to CNCF Foundation. Similarly, Kafka was developed at LinkedIn as an internal project and then was donated. And similarly, the Zest was also developed by Meta. So why these organizations are doing something, like if something, the source code is open and they are not earning with that, why they are donating such code to such big organizations? What's their benefit? So first of all, they want a community to be built around it, because that way more and more people would be trained with it. They will be more and more people will be adopting it, and along with that, they could work with their competition on working on solving common problems, and then on top of it, innovate and bring better solutions. There are chances that you could get an opportunity from them. Right now, around 92,000, these companies employs around 92,000 of the software engineers around the world, and they have really great revenues, around $28 billion of revenue. Another story, View Storefront, which even I have contributed to it, recently got 20 million of seed funding. It's also an open source software following the same open core model. Okay, now what's for you as a contributor? Now this is something that may interest you. So as a student, if you contribute to open source, there are various internships available. Like maybe many of you have heard about GSOC. There is also Google Season of Docs. There is also MLH, and there is also Outreach. These are just four big names that I'm talking about, but there are many other ones. So what these internships do, like what it's all about. So so there is a defined timeline in which you can contribute to certain projects, and these the organizations that are behind these internships, they will give you a really lump sum stipend for that. Like for example, GSOC, you have to contribute to projects for a tenure of I guess 2 to 3 months, and you get around $1,500 of stipend for it, which amounts for I think more than 1 lakh rupees in Indian currency. And similarly, MNH scholarship and Outreach, and they are also doing similar amounts. So what the process looks like is, you register for them. For certain internships, you register for them, they approve your request, the application, and then you are allotted a mentor, you work with them, and then if you are you did what is expected to you, you will get the stipend for that.
some other internships do is you register for them, you pick specific project, you will be have a mentor, then you contribute and then you have your proposal to them that I have done this kind of work in this period, and once it is accepted, you get this time. So most of these internships works in a similar fashion, and there is also an example that you could look upon. This guy is Kunal Mishra. He's from a Tier 3 college from Delhi, and he started contributing in I guess second or third year, and he started with GSOC, then MLH, and then when he started contributing, he started sharing about it. He had his own channel, YouTube channel, with lakhs of subscribers to it, and he got around 100 offer letters from all big organizations. And when he joined CIVO as an advocate, developer advocate, he in 1 year itself he became a manager in that particular organization. So it's a great story. You could search for him how he what he did with the open source internships, how he found his passion, and so it could be quite inspiring for you all. Now, another thing that you get is jobs. So how do you get jobs? Most of the big organizations nowadays are having a department which is the open source department. And there are some certain jobs like developer relations, community manager. Now these jobs are something where if you are quite aware about how communities work and you are technically sound, so you are eligible for these jobs. You know how the communities work and how you could make it a success. So as these organizations are making lots of projects open source, they want people who could make them a successful project. So through these departments, if you are active in certain communities, you could get a job. And other ways, the companies who have open sourced their project, if you start contributing to them, you are working in parallel with the people who are already working there, and you may get an offer letter based upon that. You may get a job opportunity. And I'm not just telling it as is. I have some examples as well. Like there is this story about Harkiraj Singh. So he did his GSOC in 2016 and 2017, and he worked at Amazon as well as Goldman Sachs, and then he left the organization due to some reasons. Then he started doing some remote work, and in that he found a job with 4 crore. He got really popular because he bagged a package of 4 crore rupees. Then after that, he heard about, he was continuously doing open source as well, right? So he heard that Backpack is one of the company which is a crypto wallet, and the company is open sourcing source code. So he significantly contributed for 10 years, and he got a message from CEO of the company regarding the job. And you could find him on YouTube. Even he's having his own channel. Like I have taken a screenshot also. So he's having his own channel, and where he's telling the entire experience about that. So I'm not saying just do it for this, but open source contribution can get you opportunities. Other than internships and jobs, there are platforms where you are directly paid for making code. So people, like for example, many people need certain feature in certain open source software. So what they do is, there are like bounty programs. So Open Collective, Patreon, GitHub sponsors, these are the platforms where you could find a sponsor who will pay you to contribute to open source. Then there could, you could get prizes and swags. So Hacktober Fest is happening every October, and FOSS Asia Coded is there, and there are many other such competitions and events are happening where you could get some prize monies as well as some swags. Okay. So maybe you must be thinking that jobs, internships, bounties, or these swags are the real thing that you are getting. But I don't. But when you do that and when you look back, the real things are like when I contributed to the projects I did, like Always and Ruler. There is the things that I know before. I was doing much more better than that. So I was improving my skills. Even like people at my organization were senior to me. Even they were not knowing so much of the features about Office that I was aware of. So you are honing up your skills with that whenever you are contributing to open source. Then you meet new people who are interested in a similar thing that you are. You find mentors, like in open source world, they are quite appreciative to everyone. You make a slight contribution and they will appreciate you so well, like you will think like I just changed a small thing, but they are quite appreciative because you are doing it voluntarily. So you may find a mentor and maybe possible they may be belonging to really big organization, but they will be still so down to earth, humble and so helping you. Like when I used to work in office in the first year, there was this person Jaks who was always active and he was aware about every technology. So he used to guide me so much. So you may get a mentor. Once you are good with that, you may be mentoring others. Then you are building public artifacts. Everything is open source. You could even share that you build certain feature in certain project in your resume because everything is open source. Then you learn people skills. Most of the communities are working on mailing lists, and like these are like I'm talking about it. So we get to meet people. We get to talk to people through mailing lists. So you learn how to speak, how to like initially I took lots of time creating mails, but now it's quite easy for me to do that. So how to talk, what to talk. In the first year I learned a lot. So as my career progressed, I was talking so fluently with even integration partners and all that. So that really helped me with my career. So, okay. So finally, when you are making such impact out there, it's always empowering. Like for example, if you contribute to Firefox, it makes you feel blissful about it. So it's always great to give back to the community. So that's how I will end this. So thank you everyone. Hope you find something interesting. I'm available at Bangalore Jug booth, and also we are providing awareness and doing workshops and all that related to open source and these internships. So if anyone is interested in that, to connect me on LinkedIn or reach out to today's conference. Thank you.